mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4
A very good morning to you, and
Spice
you're tuned
FM,
in
Nairobi.
at 12 minutes after 9 o'clock, and we continue into the final hour of this morning's conversation, coming in off a heavy day, and the 25th of June, which marked the remembrance of what happened last year as concerns the anti-finance bill protests and those who unfortunately lost their lives. We're going to wrap up this conversation and just hear, so next steps at a crossroads, what happens next? And we'll be joined by a guest in just a short while. After which I ask you, are you passionate? Are you passionate about creating a better future for Kenya? So is the I&M Foundation.
This week on Club Kiboko. I'm told you have to hold on these tightly and you don't let them go.
This is what I'm talking about right here on Straight Up Show.
Bob Francis, or Bob Colimo, na Bob Male, Lema Bro.
I am not a woman.
Nini tena nyabuti.
Subscribe to the Smarter Bundle today. Dial *544# or visit My Airtel app. Airtel Smarter Bundle. Browse, chat, call. Airtel Money. Airtel, a reason to imagine.
Kutoka kwenye giza la ufuska hadi mwanga wa biashara, alianza maisha katika mtaa wa Korogocho.
Nilikuwa nimezenga pombe na sikuwa najua tena nini.
Akiwa msichana mdogo, aliingia kwenye dimbwi la ufuska, mihadarati na hatari za kila namna. Alinusurika mauti mikononi mwa mteja mmoja wa ajabu aliyetaka kumtoa kafara.
Sasa uko bedroom kwa unasikia tu lauta zingine wanatoa vicheko zingine.
Well, in terms of moving the nation forward, and all these conversations that we're talking about. Oh, first, KTN is back.
We're back, baby, like we never left.
So KTN is back, NTV is back on air. We know what happened yesterday.
Yeah.
But, looking at the whole anniversary yesterday, and there was this call, and what was going to be unique in a way, going beyond, the young people coming out to, remember their fallen heroes and obviously continue the agitation for the changes, is the solemn remembrance from the mothers. And the plan was the mothers who lost their children, their sons and their daughters, were planning to lay flowers where their kin were killed. That is out in Parliament, on the other adjacent areas. But they were met by a razor wire and police. The families which lost loved ones in the June 25th, 2024 protest that gathered on Kimathi Street yesterday. So they gathered around Kimathi Street and they began marching towards Moi Avenue to lay the flowers at the spot where the first victim of the anti-government protest, Rex Masai, was also shot. However, they were forced to scamper for safety after police fired tear gas canisters at them. And there was a friend who was outside Central Police where there was another crowd that gathered there yesterday, and we were all watching this on screens. And they went to Central and the crowd was gathering, but you had the gates closed, but you had an engagement with the officers. So at least we started seeing some signs. And these officers were talking to these young people who are chanting and, And a police vehicle passed behind them, and an officer just decides to fire up a tear gas canister. Then everybody starts running.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, was that really necessary? So it almost appeared yesterday when Kalonzo, Eugene, the rest of that group was going to lay their flowers along Parliament Road, that there was going to be some semblance of restraint, and it was going to be peaceful. And I think yesterday you kept saying, I have a bad feeling about today. I have a bad, you remember? You kept saying I have a bad feeling about today. And it almost felt like maybe you might see something different. Then suddenly things just started changing. So you're looking at the different groups that were going to the streets yesterday. A lot of businesses, because this also needs to be mentioned, businesses were affected.
They were.
And there was a point I saw River Road and some buildings there. I didn't see police around there, but what I saw was goons with hacksaws cutting padlocks, stealing with reckless abandon, and it was free for all.
Yeah.
And it's that reminder again that things can quickly escalate, but we still go to the same blame game. These protesters are violent. See what they did. How do you then define the peaceful protesters from the goons who unleashed? The WhatsApp groups that the Standard exposed, and they were planning how to, let these people get onto the streets. We saw all that, and so the culmination of what we saw yesterday was not really surprising. But what was a bit surprising was also this was not just around CBD in Nairobi.
No,
it was in all parts of the country. Well, most parts of the country.
Yeah. So as you talk about the women the mothers who came yesterday to just commemorate their children, there is this quote from Jacinta Anyango, who said, "I carried rose flowers and came to commemorate with my son who was brutally killed by the same police. We had gathered and were ready to march, but same police officers threw tear gas at us. I hadn't even wiped my tears before they threw tear gas at us. What kind of country does this? What kind of a country does this to a mourning mother?" And we have Munyao, Rex's Masai's mother, had this to say: "Why are they treating us like criminals? Is this the way the state plans to repay us?"
You have to ask yourself questions then when it comes to progressive government or progressive nationalism, that are some of these tactics that have been employed, hiding from the real situation. And then we saw things successively yesterday, and they're not new to protests. But then you have to ask the question: is that what is the back end? What's happening in the back end that you would want to shut down, a protest? Why would you want to then shut down what is the will and the right of the people to then come out and speak? And that we see the introduction of these elements, because you cannot tell me, you could try, but you can't convince. It would be difficult to convince that the rogue elements which we saw, which were there, you can't tell me that the folks who came out in peaceful protest, or those who came to commemorate their loved ones, or those who came out in the memory of those who died yesterday, is the same stock and character and breed of people that we saw pulling off the coat of arms on the law courts in Kikuyu, or that we saw with machetes breaking down padlocks on the businesses of people who count on them for a living in the city. You can't tell me that it is the same stock of people who then went to say, we need to remember and hope for a better Kenya. It to be very, very difficult to convince that it is the same kind of people. But what for me then lands this plane is that it is very influent. It's very easy to influence a hungry man to behave in a certain way. It is it's very easy to influence a desperate man or woman or young person to behave in a certain way. And the same issue, the same issues that people are coming to protest about is the same issue then that makes it easy for you to give 50, 200, 1,000 shillings to somebody to then come and disrupt things. I don't know if you're hearing what I'm saying.
Yes.
Exactly, yes.
It's the same issue. It's the same desperation that I can say, here's 1,000 shillings, go and cause mayhem amongst these people who are protesting. It is the same problem that the people who are protesting are saying, we have got to do better. It's the same reason. It's because this person cannot find a job. It's because this person is desperate to within an inch of their life to get something to eat on that day. It's because this person cannot get access to capital to then be able to do a business. It's because they've not been able to pay their rent. It's because in a certain time, they've had to sleep outside and had a door locked because they've not been able to make their rent. So we are using the currency of desperation to buy on both sides. And I'm saying at this point, if we don't stop and look very clearly at what is happening here, we're not going to be able to solve this issue. There will be a protest tomorrow. There will be one the day after. It will continue until you solve the problem. And if we can't see that we are cashing in the same currency on one side and on the other side, then we have an even bigger problem than we are imagining. We are cashing in the same currency, but we are buying different products. We are purchasing a different product, but the currency is the same. Unfortunately, the currency is the same. And we can't see that the goon who is bringing down this thing to cause mayhem because he's been given 1,000 bob or 2,000 shillings is suffering the same thing that the person on this side is saying, come on, government, you got to do better.
You know, the reason why they will take 1,000 shillings, because I had a conversation yesterday where someone was saying, and I was just probing the whole idea of I am a gun for hire, is when you render a population jobless, when you tell them you can go to school, get an education, with a promise that at least you'll get a job, you'll land somewhere, or you'll find an opportunity. If you don't find employment, you've got brilliant ideas, you are very creative, meaning that you have a safe space where you can explore your creativity and manifest what's in your mind. But again, when you get into that space, you're told it's almost like you're criminalized for having ideas. You are criminalized for executing those same ideas because you're not being given an enabling environment to exercise it. When you push this person and their backs against the wall, what you end up having is somebody who is willing to die for anything and at any time. Meaning, if you come and you're saying, here, I'm going to give you 1,000 shillings, I want you to go break into that shop, you will not think twice, because if you refuse, somebody else will be given that 1,000. So you don't have that 1,000 in your pocket. So if somebody else now comes again and says, hey, I'm going to give you 1,000 shillings, carry this flag, go to town, you will still do it. So they're not acting on these things because they are believing in a cause, or they believe that robbing people or going to injure people is a cause. They're just doing it because they're guns for hire. And for the longest time, what the political class in this country has always done is be in that space that you're talking about, where you imagine and assume it's business as usual. You can play tribal politics and you think we're in a generation where you can easily get away with that. These guys don't care about tribe. The conversation around tribe is not there. It is in the minds of these people who are still pushing it so that it is this tribe against that tribe. There is an economic equalizer here. So if you are Luo, you are Kisi, you are Kalenjin, you are Luya, you are Kamba, you don't have a job, it has nothing necessarily to do with your tribe. It has everything to do with you've not been given enough space or conditions to work. And therefore, what you end up then having is this situation where you have 1,000 people, 2,000 people who are desperate. They have nothing. I mean, look at the rallies that we've always had. Where do they get these numbers? On Monday at 10 in the morning. Where do they get these numbers? On Tuesday at 2 p.m. They are available. They can come from wherever. They're available because they expect tokens. And the politics of tokenism is another whole subject, because that's how the playbook has always been, is go to the women in the villages. What do those women in the villages want? They want shelters or in the market places. They want money to buy groceries to sell. What do vijana wanataka nini? Wanataka boda. Wanataka hizo boda. They need a shelter. So that's why you'll find a simple shelter might cost even 5 million. a shelter that will not cost more than 20,000 will have a budget of $1 million, and it will have the name of the politician to basically shelter around 15 to 20 borders. And it almost looks like this is such a big achievement. So I've helped you guys. It's actually a favor I'm doing that I've come to you to put this shelter for you. And that lack of demand for the longest time has led the politicians to believe you can get away with the politics of tokenism, you can get away with lacking accountability, you can get away with impunity, and now you can get goons, put people at loggerheads so that it looks it's a fight among these people. Look, they are clueless. Yes, they're saying they're tribeless, they're partyless, but they're also clueless. So there's a narrative that is pushed so that it looks like these people, you release them, it's chaos.
You know, one told me yesterday, I have nothing to lose. I'm going to the streets because I've gone to school. I have my degree. I'm an engineer by profession, but I'm in an Uber business because the government has not provided an adequate environment for me to be able to ply my trade. I'm going to park my car, go to the streets, and make sure that justice is done by me. Those as well that are being paid, it's because I have no other option. I have to eat. If I'm given 1,000 bob, I'm gonna take it, because if not, how do I survive the day?
Those are the questions, and that is the reality. Joining us now as we get into the last part of this conversation, Wanjiru is an activist and co-founder of the Mathare Social Justice Centre, and joins us this morning with Bob Njagi, who's the chairperson of the Free Kenya movement. Good morning to you both.
Good morning to you.
Good morning, Joe.
How are you doing?
All right.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Karibu sana to both of you. I mean, the last part of this conversation that we have this morning, we're glad that you made it at this time. And we're just doing a pulse check, essentially, post June 25th, where it was to be a memorial, where it came out to remember people, but then also to remember the message that is coming out to the government of the day. And we're just going to jump into the conversation now as we do a pulse check on after the fact of what happened yesterday. Where are we now, Wajira?
We are even more angry than we were yesterday. We're even more angry than we were last year. We are even more determined to have this government leave this country. I think the Kenyan people fired the president yesterday. I think it was very loud and clear that Ruto has lost legitimacy to lead the people. I think it was very clear that the young people of this nation will not tolerate a government that not only steals from them, but also kills them. It was a protest against police brutality that ended up in more Kenyans being killed, that ended up in more brutality, that ended up in media stations being denied coverage. This is a dictatorship, and the young people are saying no. We have a constitution. We are demanding that this constitution is implemented. We are demanding that rights. We refuse to normalize police brutality. We refuse to normalize death in our country by the bullet. We refuse to normalize murders by the police. We refuse to normalize institutions being given money that do not do the work they are supposed to do. We refuse to normalize a dictatorship. We refuse to normalize poverty, hopelessness, joblessness in a country of abundance. The National Intelligence Service has been given an upwards of 12 more billion from the 46 billion it had last year. This is outrageous. We are not at war in this country. We are not giving money to healthcare. We are not giving money to education. We are not giving money to the people. Why is the government being so wasteful upon taxing Kenyans who are already having it hard? This is why everybody that cared about justice, that cared about a better country, came out yesterday, and this is not the end of it. I think as young people, we are feeling like we want to see this to the very end. We want to keep demanding that justice is served and that Ruto goes, because he has had 365 days to show Kenyans I have heard you, to show Kenyans that I care, to show Kenyans that I am going to uphold the constitution. But what did we get? More repression, more murders, more theft, more advisors, more disregard for the people, the constitution, human rights, the law. As young people, we keep saying Ruto must go.
Bob, you're wearing a beret Free Kenya. This is coming 1 year. We're seeing 1 year later commemoration of those who died, and one would have hoped that the police would have behaved better. I mean, as we sit here today, is Kenya free? Are we better as compared to last year?
Yeah, first, I want to say that I'm very sorry for the people who lost their lives yesterday. I'm very sorry for the people who lost their lives yesterday. It was totally uncalled for. It shows the excesses of police brutality that we are facing in this country. What we are coming to an awakening is that the police is actually a tool that is being used to oppress the people of Kenya. And it has come a time when we have to look at how to restructure the entire system and structure of what we're calling the security sector and apparatus in this country. As we are doing other reforms in the country, I think one of the major reforms we have to look at is the security sector reforms. How do we reform this sector that is so abusive and extractive to the people? You know, it is a colonial system that we've inherited since we got independence. We have been reforming other sectors like the judiciary. We have been reforming making constitutional reforms, but never have we done serious police reforms. And this is just a testament as to the depth of which we have a problem in this society, where the police has become the public enemy number one of the people. You know, they're murdering their own brothers and sisters in plain sight of cameras. You know, where are they suspending the Constitution? They are supposed to be the people who enforce the law, not who break the law. So we are having a breakdown in the systems of the society. That is essentially what is happening, is that we are moving towards anarchy, where the police who are meant to uphold the law are the ones breaking the law day by day, shooting people, and there is nobody to hold them to account. IPOA, which is an institution that is meant to keep them to account by investigating and prosecuting them, does not have the teeth to bite. That is a systemic failure. So it's actually designed to fail, so that the police can continue to kill without having been held to account. My sister has just talked about how much budgets they've been given. You know, we're actually budgeting for the extrajudicial killings in our country without anybody being held to account. So what we are saying is that people have had enough of this. It cannot go on. The system has broken down as it is, all right? And we have no confidence in the government as it is designed. For starters, as we speak, the Inspector General of Police, the CS Interior Murkomen, the Deputy Inspector General of Police, Lagat, should not be in office as we speak. That should be a bare irreducible minimum. What I thank the Gen Zs for doing is they came out against a very brutal police force yesterday. And the whole world witnessed what happened. That is all I can say for now.
Bob, you've started your conversation very well on security sector reforms. But we've had this conversation of police reforms for a very, very long time. Just the most recent, in terms of the reform agenda within the Kenya Police Service, is the Maraga-led task force that was appointed by President William Ruto, all right? And the Police Reforms Task Force, the role was, number one, it was actually, the full name was Presidential Task Force on the Improvement of Terms and Conditions of Service and Other Reforms for Members of the National Police Service and Kenya Prison Service. So they were combining the two. Their mandate was to review police and prison officers' welfare. Number two was to assess working conditions and institutional culture, because we've always talked about the culture within the police service. Then number three, the most important one now, referencing to our discussion, is recommending reforms for training and career progression, promotions, deployment, but disciplinary grievance handling systems. Number four, suggesting structural reforms, the independence, professionalism, and accountability. Then the last one is address public complaints and the perception of impunity in the security sector. The Maraga task force did this. They presented the report, although the issue went to court. Is the issue really, because on paper, we've got really good documents that talk about police reforms. Is the problem the conversation about reforms and documenting, or is the problem the enforcement of these reports?
It both comes both in enforcement of the reports are done, yes, but they're shelved. Okay, there is no implementation done. But even further to that, I think that kind of a task force failed totally to respond to the needs of the society. You know, we are looking at a public that is being oppressed by the police on a daily basis. They are collecting bribes from the public on a daily basis, not just during the demonstrations. In the neighborhoods, we have a very oppressive system called the police, the office of the president, the most corrupt, department in government. So we're looking at something bigger than Maraga. This is something that we need, to shut down the country and recalibrate this system. Otherwise, we are not going to survive the post-colonial era. We have to get out of this. And the time has come. And that's what the Gen Zs are saying. And people are not listening to them until now. The message is not getting home. It will take a revolution of what you guys expect. I think it's time that we have a serious conversation about this issue of extrajudicial killings. I'm a victim of abductions, I went through it for 32 days, all right? It's the security system that abducted me. I was with the spokesperson for the police the other day before the demonstrations on 24th on TV, and he promised that the police are going to conduct themselves with a lot of restraint. But what we saw was the opposite. They actually mobilized the police to come and stop people from gathering and assembling, Article 37, the right to freedom of picketing. So that's what we are saying, that we cannot continue this way. It cannot go on.
Wanjira, as you continue with freedom of demonstration, right to be heard, and all this, and how police are conducting themselves, especially around protests, one would form a conclusion that everything that is being said or the demands that are being made out there fall on deaf ears. So how do we move forward from that? That's
very true. I think we can see that they have refused to listen to the people of Kenya. They have decided to disregard the sovereignty of the Kenyan people, to disregard what it is that the Kenyan people are saying. And I think how we are going to move from that is assert our sovereignty as the people of Kenya. I think we need to set a transitional committee that will take over the functioning of the government in terms of upholding human rights, in terms of another IEBC, because the young people have even been refused to be given ideas to decide their future for themselves. I think a lot of things need to be changed. And it is going to take everybody in the Republic right now to stand in defense of the Republic of Kenya, of the sovereignty of the Kenyan people. At this particular point, it feels like it's the people versus the political class. Yeah.
Wanjira, how? And I think this is a difficult conversation to have.
It is.
But it is necessary to have it.
Extremely necessary.
Because we say that there's something wrong. This is where we've come from. There's something wrong, obviously, because it has been displaying itself in very many ways. And it's all culminated then in the protests that we see. And then, in between that, not just on the 25th of June 2024, but sporadic ones that happened before. And then we see again what happened yesterday, which the testament of, here that we're seeing that we still see some of the things that happened brutally that still continue. But if we are going to get to the point where we're at the precipice of having that conversation and saying things must change, certain things need to happen, certain processes need to take place. How do they happen? What needs to happen? Do people need to sit in a boardroom? We heard yesterday over and over again that there needs to be a combination of street revolution and boardroom policy. There needs that to happen. Does there need to be somebody in the room when we are saying that this revolution is happening on the street, and somebody will call you and say, okay, guys, how are we going to go about this? Does that need to happen?
I think just to come in at that point is where, as a movement, the Free Kenya movement, since 2018, we have been on a path of a popular initiative, a referendum, because a referendum provides a platform for all Kenyans to come together to look at the issues that are bedeviling the society and to fundamentally address those issues through a constitutional review process. In my view and in our view as the Free Kenya movement, there are two ways to go about it. Either a popular uprising, which is a revolution, or a popular initiative, which is a referendum. And a referendum is an organized revolution. It's a revolution through the Constitution. And that's one avenue that I'd like to invite even the young people to pick up this moment, that we can collect 1 million signatures. If we can raise 10 million shillings in a day, how about raising 1 million signatures to put together the country towards a mood of what you're calling a people's dialogue, whereby the civil society will come on board, the social justice movements will come on board with their issues, because you have a lot of issues for gender, for youth, for inclusivity, issues regarding devolution. Those are issues that we cannot resolve on the streets by demonstrations. We have to come to a point whereby we now converge the street protests with now the boardroom, which is now a people's convention at a Bomas kind of setting, where we can have sober engagements about these issues about security. We cannot talk about these issues in the studio and on the streets and then leave it at that. That's why we keep coming back to the streets, because we don't come to a point of resolving the problem. And our direction as a movement, and I hope Kenyans who are listening to this can check our website, www.freekenya.co.ke. You can just check the website, look at the issues that we stand for, and sign online. If we get 1 million signatures within a week, we can push this country into a conversation such as what we are discussing. Otherwise, we shall keep going back on the streets year after year. All right? So our direction is that. And unfortunately, if we don't come up as a people to use Article 1 and Article 257, which is provided for in the Constitution as one of the ways we can express our sovereignty directly through a referendum, because we're going to make the laws ourselves as a people, then it means the NADCO referendum is coming up soon. They're coming up with a referendum, which is a government-backed referendum through the NADCO report. So in a very short time, they're going to pass 2/3 majority in both houses, the Senate and the National Assembly. And then you have the new IBC in place, being pushed towards a referendum that is actually dictating to advance the interest of the political elite.
Okay, so then does that need to happen then?
I'd like to weigh in on that, Bob.
Sure.
Where we're standing as young people right now, there's no particular institution we're having faith in, not even the IEBC that is going to oversee the referendum that you propose. So we are in favor of a parallel event where we are on the streets and there's a transitional council backed by the people that is comprising of all of the progressive forces in this country, comprising of the social movements, of progressive political parties, of movements such as yourself,
Correct.
of the professional bodies,
Right.
of the representatives of organized groups, the religious institutions, the presidents of the Law Society of Kenya, the former judicial chief justices in the country, so that we are talking as the people are backing up this transitional committee to take over not only governance but constitutional matters. We cannot reverse. We don't believe in any kind of reforms, because we've been at it. For the past 10 years, we've been talking about police reforms. We've been talking about an end to extrajudicial killings. We've been talking about an end to corruption. We have gotten to a point where we are done talking. We need actions now. We need to take matters into our own hands as the sovereign people of Kenya. Things cannot go back like yesterday did not happen. Things cannot go back like more people did not die. Like women were not raped in this country.
I agree partly with her in the sense, that's why I said there are two options. We can have a popular uprising, that's what she's saying, or a popular initiative whereby, you see, when you go the popular uprising way and we remove Ruto, fine, we're going to remove him. Who is going to elect this transitional council? How are we going to have faith it's you or it's that? It will create another, again, situation which we are not very sure about how it will end up. We could end up the South Sudan way. Let's be practical. Unless you can give us a very clear roadmap as to how we can get that
this is my proposal.
I'm not discrediting that, but
I just don't want you to say we could end up the Sudan way, because that's the government propaganda, and it's not true. Kenyan people love their country. We are not interested in destroying this country.
I agree with you, Anjira. What I'm saying is that there are two options. Let's use both options, right? What is wrong with organizing ourselves and getting 1 million signatures? It's one of the ways.
IEBC is the problem, because where are you taking the signatures? Who's heading this IEBC?
And I think this is the direction. The question is.
But we have a problem with the IEBC. We have a petition as Free Kenya Movement.
Just a minute, Bob, on that.
Against the selection panel.
This is the question in the direction in which we are going.
Yeah.
And that I almost hear Bob saying, and I want to hear if this is it, because Wanjira says we've been talking. To have a conversation, to sit down around a table, we've been having a conversation. We've been saying it. A conversation that has happened for the longest time. Bob seems to be going in the direction where you say folks have to sit around a table and agree. There needs to be somebody
including the Gen Zs.
There needs to
including
be,
the Gen Zs.
Hang on.
Yeah.
There needs to be somebody who is representative of a body to take the lead and sit.
Yeah.
Seems to be what Bob is saying.
We have a civilized
that-
society, yes.
Wait a minute,
Yeah,
Bob.
okay.
Is that the direction that this then should take, in your opinion? That where we have the mushrooming of ideas, and it's not just the mushrooming, it's a loud, concerted voice. Do we need to have a representative of this body at a table saying, unless we have a conversation onto action, we are back in the streets?
A single representative?
10, 100, but somebody. Is that necessary?
I think what we are agreeing, all of us, is that we need some sort of leadership. We need leadership from the people, by the people, for the people. How we arrive at that is what we need to figure out together. And my proposal is having the organized people's groups that are already there, because the people are organized, to come into a council, a people's transitional council, that is backed by also the Gen Zs have to be represented, the mothers of victims have to be represented, the teachers have to be represented, the workers have to be represented, the activists and social movements have to be represented. A people's convention. A people's convention. Yes. And this must not revolve around a single individual. This has to be a people's-led process towards birthing a new republic, because the old Kenya is dead. That Kenya is dead to us. The Kenya where you kill people aimlessly is dead. The Kenya where you steal our monies and have no repercussions is dead. The Kenya where police abuse us like that is dead to us as young people. So we are in the process of birthing another republic. And this one, we are welcoming every progressive Kenyan, every patriotic Kenyan to partake in this process.
Wanjira, there's been this question. I hear what both of you are saying. Bob, what he's suggesting, there's a way all this can merge and synergized. However, there's an argument that there's no legal basis for a transitional council to get the president out there. The Kenya Constitution, because we have to, again, all of us go through the Constitution, correct?
I completely
So
agree.
the Constitution currently, as it is, only stipulates two lawful ways to remove a sitting president, either by impeachment by a parliament, and even in that impeachment, it has to be either due to gross violation of the Constitution or serious misconduct. That's number one. Number two is by electoral defeat, which will be a general election in 2027. So a parallel or an extra constitutional transitional council, in quotes from what I hear you say, would then be illegal and unconstitutional. How will you go about that?
Number one, I don't know how you interpret all sovereign power belongs to the people of Kenya. I do not know how you interpret
It's described in the Constitution.
How do you, and we exercise our power directly or indirectly. In the event that the person we have donated our power to abuses it, uses it to kill Kenyans, uses it to steal from Kenyans, we take back our power. That becomes an illegitimate government. That becomes a government that is anti the people of Kenya. So we take back our power. Sometimes we have to act in the best interest of the country, even though it is not what how to remove a president is stipulated. We are sitting in Article 1 of the Kenyan Constitution, which gives us all sovereign power to act in the best interest of the country. And this is what I feel is the most appropriate, most patriotic way to go as at now, because the parliament has been hijacked by the president. They will not impeach him, even though there's enough evidence of gross violation of human rights, gross misconduct, and we are not going to go into an election where the IEBC commissioners have been elected by Ruto. We know how that is going to go. It could be worse for this country if we actually get there than where we are at right now.
One would ask the question, still tied with what Okari has asked now. It is a question of the Constitution, Article 1 has to be read with how then we remove the president, all that, the constitutionalism of how this process will be in place. But then again, informing the Transitional Council, there has to be mechanism and powers and instruments that will go into place to operationalize this council. Where does this fall in the Constitution?
I think at that point is where I had an ideological disagreement with my comrades who were pushing for that. Because, at the same time, we're supposed to uphold the Constitution. We're actually defending the Constitution, even from ourselves, even from ourselves. Sometimes we might think we are the ones who are defending it, but we're the ones destroying it. The Constitution has stipulated a very clear process of removal of a presidency. And that's why for us as a Free Kenya movement, we realized that the framers of the Constitution left some gaps. Like there is no process for recall by the people, right? How can the people recall the president through this Constitution? Is there a place you can collect signatures to remove the president through a referendum? No. But what we can do is that we can enable that legislation through a referendum. And that's what we're proposing to do as a Free Kenya movement, is to enable that referendum process of where the people now in the future, when we feel aggrieved by the president, we can collect 1 million signatures and say, we want to remove the president, and we go to a vote, all right? But at the moment, there is no that process in the Constitution. So what they're saying is that we go and remove this president because we are dissatisfied. Yes, I'm very dissatisfied. I wish he would be out as soon as yesterday, but I still have to use the same Constitution to remove him. And that's where our hands are tied,
Our hands tied?
I don't feel like our hands are tied.
Okay, so if what Bob is saying is that here there is no clear path, if the people are clearly disappointed with how the president is working and say, well, we need an option to be able to remove it, according to the Constitution, which then folks are bound to uphold and protect, doesn't give you a way out. Right? But it does give you a process through which something can then be done. Bob is saying use that process. And also on this side, Wanjira is saying, we can't continue to be in the same situation that we have been and complained about for the longest time. But I also don't hear you saying that there's an aversion to process.
And this is the thing.
And I want to hear what Jira is saying about that.
I think my only problem with Bob's proposal is where it ends up.
Okay.
We could do that. We could totally do that. We could totally collect all the signatures. Where are we taking these signatures to?
Because
who is
saying
making the final decision?
This is
people
what
who
I think.
are anti-people.
Let me answer that, because that's a question I normally get often.
And I want to hear what Wanjira's solution is here in terms of, there is a problem because the systemized mismanagement, the systemized corruption, the systemized and systemic impunity amongst these institutions for which these processes should essentially follow, that's the problem.
That's the problem.
So where or are we in the place where we are saying we don't know, which is okay? Are we in a place where we're saying we don't know, Wanjira?
I think we are in a place where we have never been here as a country. We are in a historic moment in this country. We are in a place where the collective intellect of Kenyans is needed, and we are proposing. I, for one, and I feel very many Kenyans have lost faith in our institutions, Bob, and for good reasons. Our institutions have failed us. So we cannot run to those very institutions to salvage us from where we are at. I think that the people who did the Constitution were very right by asserting that all sovereign power belongs to the people of Kenya, such that in the event our institutions fail, we can collect our power. The thing is, we have to be very organized. And I think we are organized. You've been in the civic space. You've been in the political space. You've seen people are organized in different functions. Coming together is not going to be so difficult. We are all interested in a better country. That's the core of our coming together. We just need the backing of the Kenyan people. And we saw yesterday that the Kenyan people are tired of this regime.
But Wanjira, I will disagree to some degree. I hear what Bob is saying and where he's coming from. What you're quoting, you see, if then we're defending the Constitution, we have to interpret that same